Ask me anything, live questions and answers with Magdalena. I thought we'll do this like once a month. And hey, you guys on Instagram, I am multitasking. I am doing Facebook on one computer and I'm doing Instagram on my phone. So forgive me if I'm not looking at you directly. Sometimes I'm going to try to, but that's because I'm just multitasking. So yeah, in case you are not familiar with my work, my name is Magdalena. I'm the founder of Hormones Balance. Our whole focus is to help women balance hormones naturally as much as possible. And all my books, the latest one talking about estrogen dominance, is really dedicated to help you through diet, supplements, herbs, to balance your hormones, before going into bioidentical hormones, or maybe not doing birth control pills, and really setting up the foundation for health to stick with you for a very long time. And you will realize that, when you start making those dietary changes, correct your nutritional deficiencies and start adding some few selective supplements here and there, you will see that a lot of things will start changing, not just your diet, but even, just your overall health. Your sleep improves, your mood improves, the way you show up, the way we are with our partners and the loved ones, just everything is changing. So, all right. So, the way this is going to work is just posting your question, or you can also share with us, if you follow us for a while, if you've made any changes, what has been changing for you? Like, what have you maybe discovered about your own body that has been really beneficial for you? Like, I don't know, like maybe you've started the elimination diet from one of my books, and you suddenly feel like, hey, my joint pains are gone, my energy is so much better, my periods have gotten so much more painless. I just had a question and answer session in another group, and one of the ladies shared that she gave up dairy 2 months ago, and all her breast pain just went away. So I'm not saying that just like giving up dairy is going to solve all your problems, but it's definitely something to consider, that when you get off inflammatory foods, dairy, gluten being the top of the list, a lot of things start shifting in your body, and for the better. And that's why, and your hormones will benefit from that as well. So this could be really, really changing. So maybe, one of the things that we want you to know, since we're in spring, and unless you are like on the South Hemisphere, but on the North Hemisphere, we're entering spring right now. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be going into spring, because I am so tired of the Colorado winter. We've been having 7 months of winter, and I say that's enough. I just went and bought a whole bunch of starters, started planting my garden, and boom, then we had like a whole bunch of snow that came in that night. And so 9 p.m. I was bringing all the pots back into the house, and so that I can salvage my herbs, because most of them would have not survived the cold. So I'm wondering, what are you growing this spring? And so one of the things that I started growing is I've got like 7 different types of thyme, including my absolute favorite, the golden lemon thyme, which is just so amazing. I'm also growing arugula, femseed. I've got hyssop anise going. That's just wonderful. The flowers are just so anisey, and it's just great to add it to salads. I'm doing the regular basil, a few different types, and a couple of different sages. I think an interesting one you might find is lemon verbena. I've grown it last year, and it's done really well. And so it makes a wonderful, wonderful tea. It's kind of like mint meets lemon, somewhere in between. I've got a bunch of mints, different mints going on, including catnip. I'm wondering if any one of you knows catnip, and how would you use catnip? So we've got some questions coming in from some of you on Instagram. So let me grab those. G Little 43 says, our town library is buying book for a community. Are you talking about my book or some other book? M Cooper saying, whenever I try to get off hormone patch, I get extreme cold to the bone, and extreme fatigue. Any thoughts? Yeah, so something to check out your thyroid. I think that's something that will be beneficial for you if you haven't done that already. Where to start after having IUD removed and having first menstrual period? So it kind of depends on what are your symptoms. There's a really great book that talks about after, like, Beyond the Pill. Dr. Jolene Brighton wrote it. And so supporting women after birth control pills and what to do with that. Yeah, Beyond the Pill. And so it kind of depends on what kind of symptoms you're having with your first menstruation. Like, is your cycle just come back immediately and you're feeling great? Or is it very painful and you're having a lot of problems? And so it kind of depends on what your symptoms are. Yeah, so, I'm going to talk about while you guys are thinking about your questions, I'm going to talk about something that is kind of common question. We've been getting quite a lot of support tickets, and I wanted to talk to you about the difference between hydrochloric acid, digestive enzymes, and digestive bitters. Like, how do you combine all those two together, right? So if you're on our mailing list, you might have seen, I do talk a lot about, we introduced some digestive enzymes a month ago, and then some tributyrin for gut health. And then, I always talk about the health of your gut by starting looking at whether you have sufficient stomach acid, and then also talk about digestive bitters, right? And so it's like, how do you combine all of those together? And so it's actually really pretty simple. The way you can think about your digestion, your digestive system, is that your body is designed to produce its own juices, right? So your own saliva and your own digestive enzymes all throughout the body. Different organs produce enzymes. And then you also have your stomach acid. It produces its own stomach acid, right? So, so there's two strategies. You either can do certain things to support the production of your own juices, or you can give your body those juices if you're not producing them sufficiently, okay? And as we age, we actually slow down a lot. And so you might need that support. So what can you do to stimulate your own body? And the answer is doing things like digestive bitters, for example. It's a little bit like you're giving your body a nudge, okay? Saying, hey, this is the reason why when you, I don't have them, actually, I'm just gonna grab them super quickly because they're right there on a counter, because I have them right before every meal. So let me just show you. We just launched them in April. And so those are like the before and after digestive bitters that we have. This is the before, this is the after a meal that you take. And so like the minute I will squirt that into my mouth, it's immediately my saliva starts flowing. My stomach acid gets produced. It gets amplified right away. So I'm going to do that before. A little bit on the bitter side. But it tastes really, really good, you guys. So who here has tried digestive bitters and you were like, blah, not again? So we formulated them in a way that is not just for herbalists, for anyone. And so they will really start preparing your whole digestion for receiving food and extracting the maximum nutrients out of them and all that. Now, for some people, doing digestive bitters is wonderful. And so they report less constipation. They feel like they don't see food in their poop anymore. They feel energized. They feel their blood sugar levels gets balanced out. And so just a lot of really great benefits. But for some people, that's just not enough. And this is when you can start considering saying, you know what, I might need a digestive enzyme. Like, it's just like these digestive bitters are just not enough. I need to give actually my body something. And that's when you can consider digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes as a supplement. And also as we age, we produce less of them. And so just supplementing with that can be really beneficial. There's a huge connection, you guys, between gut health and hormones. And I talk extensively about it in the hormone book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna take a question from Caroline here. She's on Facebook. A night sweats at night on neck and head. Suspect I'm not clearing estrogen well. Not sure if this is the cause. Solutions would you recommend? So Caroline, first of all, I'm going to cover a couple of topics, but we have an exhaustive article that we have written. It's on hormonesbalance.com. If you just look at night sweats, hot flashes, there's a whole hot flashes article we have. And so a couple of suggestions here for you. It's not just about not clearing estrogen as well. Generally, women, when our estrogen goes down, we start experiencing a lot more hot flashes and night sweats. There's a couple of solutions you can consider. One big thing, our Hormones Balance community reported that whenever they balance their blood sugar levels, it can really help them a lot. So you can do that by changing your breakfast, not eating anything sweet for breakfast, but switching to savory breakfast, reducing the coffee that you drink, and especially during caffeine before a meal, or having too much caffeine throughout the day, can really produce great results. Bringing your inflammation down. There's a number of women in our community who have said that when they reduced inflammation, when they got off gluten and got off dairy and started eating less processed food and more whole foods, then their hot flashes reduced as well. So there's some of those things you can try right away, and they can start producing really great results. Let me take some question here on Instagram. There's so many of them are coming in. We have a question. Do you have experience with people who have menstrual migraines? Absolutely. That is one of the big symptoms of estrogen dominance. And so I highly recommend, check out my book on Amazon, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. I cover there what causes migraines. And so the short answer to this is that oftentimes is due to low progesterone. There is one type of estrogen dominance called, which is the second type, that's called the uneven partners. And that's when estrogen progesterone is out of whack. And you would benefit probably a lot by correcting your progesterone levels before your cycle. And so that is something that a lot of women feel way better, much, much quicker. We have a question also on Instagram. I'm on paleo diet for a while, gave up gluten, dairy, sugar, and nightshades, etc., but still craving sugar. I tried to substitute with fruits and berries, but it's the hardest thing. Any tips? Yeah, so that's so sugar is an interesting craving, right? And we have to recognize that sugar is either a physiological or a psychological craving. So physiological is something that one thing you could be looking into is considering, see whether you have candida. So if you just look up some, like one of my favorite practitioners is The Whole Journey. Krista Orecchio is the founder, and she's got a lot of really great information about candida. So look her up and do the quiz. I think she has a quiz there. If not, she's got articles that talk about candida. The thing is that if you don't address candida by breaking the biofilm and the candida is still present, candida is this yeast overgrowth, and this yeast, yeast, like if you've ever made beer or kombucha, you know that yeast and bacteria grow, yeast grows on sugar. And so some bacteria too, actually, yeah. So that's something to look into. The other side of sugar cravings is the consideration of saying, how much of that is actually a psychological craving? And so, one thing you have to remember is that when we consume sugar, your dopamine levels go up, right? And so that's the reason why a lot of us who are in times of distress, our dopamine levels are low, serotonin can be low too. And this is the time when we start craving sugar as comfort food, right? I mean, nobody eats nobody eats zucchinis as comfort food, right? Comfort food comes with like super rich, high carbohydrate, high sugar content. And so that's something to consider, is like how much of that is a psychological craving for you, a comfort that you need maybe in times of stress, discomfort. Is it something that's bothering you? So pay attention to those things as well. All right, let me jump over to Facebook, and Dusty is asking, I have very low ferritins at 7. Wow, that's low. What is a good supplements to take? So Dusty, first of all, supplements are a little tricky because many of them are very constipating. The other thing is to consider is, so two things to consider. One is I like getting iron from food, and the best one is gonna be liver. If you don't like eating or cooking liver, then consider doing liver, desiccated liver in the form of pills. And one of them, the brand I really love, is called Paleo Valley. It's called Organ Complex. And one thing you could also do is a couple of things actually that a ferritin and iron is going to be dependent on. One is the presence of vitamin C when you're consuming it. So I would add a little bit of vitamin C to taking a supplement, or if you were eating organ meats, then having that with something like a broccoli or supplementing with vitamin C at the end of the meal could be helpful. And also remember that if you're eating food, you know, one of the reasons why a lot of women are low on iron is because they have a low stomach acid. So low stomach acid is what's going to be helping you absorb iron from the food or supplements even you are taking. So that's something that also, Dusty, I've written an article. If you go to hormonesbalance.com, I've written an article about how to test low stomach acid at home, and you can learn from there if that is your case. All right, let's see what we have on. There's an interesting question. Chef Christie's asking, why do you not recommend eating eggs? That's a great question. So doing the elimination diet, I don't recommend doing eggs just because I have found that about 50% of people experience a sensitivity to eggs without realizing without realizing it. And so I'm not demonizing eggs. It's just that it is really a protein. There are proteins found in eggs that are just making a lot of people really sensitive. And this could manifest in various different forms, whether it's is because like anxiety, a lot of anger, just feeling really kind of off, having digestive problems. I get pimples from eggs. I get literally zits on my chest and if I eat too many of them. So so that's during the elimination diet. But if you reintroduce eggs, and I talk about in my book how to do that, then, you know, if eggs are not your problem, then you can absolutely keep them in your diet. But yeah, how many of you here who are listening had a problem with eggs? Like you discovered after doing the elimination diet, when you added them back in, it's like, oh, yeah, there's a problem. But you can also check duck eggs. A lot of people cannot do chicken eggs, but they can do duck eggs or quail eggs. We have a question here about, would taking the Dutch test help get information about infertility issues? Yes, part of it. So Dutch will show you very well how you're breaking down estrogens. And so estrogen dominance, remember, can happen for two reasons. One is that you are having, the way you're breaking down estrogens to clean and dirty estrogens is unfavorable. So Dutch is going to show you the metabolites, the dirty and the clean estrogens, right? What it will not show you is your progesterone levels. They only do an estimate of progesterone, which is really unfortunate, but that's just how the technology works. So if you want to have progesterone reading, that you're going to do a saliva test, and that's a lot more accurate and tells a better story. What would you recommend for higher levels of testosterone? So testosterone, I'm going to talk about women, not men. Women, testosterone gets produced in our adrenals. So if you're low on testosterone, then the way to go could be a couple of things. One is supporting your adrenals and nurturing your adrenals. You can do that through a lot of rest and sleep, applying castor oil on your adrenals. You can do that through adding a lot more magnesium and vitamin C. B vitamins, those are some of the spark plugs for the adrenals. So that's a great way of supporting them. Then you can possibly produce more testosterone. The other thing to consider is aromatase inhibitor, such as chrysin. You spell it CHRYSIN. And chrysin stops the conversion from testosterone to estrogen. So effectively, you will be maintaining more testosterone as compared to estrogen. And so we have a follow-up question on that. What are the symptoms of low testosterone in women? Great question from Suzette. And the answer is the classical ones would be lack of sex drive. So like a big drop off in sex drive. Your muscles you're not as strong in your body as you used to be before. So even though you exercise, you don't put on muscle anymore. Your skin starts sagging. Your mental functions are just not as sharp. And one thing that a lot of women say about, lowering testosterone is like their sense of self-confidence is just not the same. Like, maybe as a younger person, you were like assertive and confident and you were showing up in a certain way. And as your testosterone starts dropping throughout the years, you just start feeling a little bit unsure of yourself and the confidence is not the same level. So those are some of the classical ones. Also, I would just lastly say, high, so those, on low testosterone, I would say those are the main ones. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let me just do one here from, Mona is asking, what do you recommend eating for breakfast in lieu of eggs? They are so satisfying, high in protein and versatile. So that's a tough swap. I know, Mona. And so I totally hear you. Especially when you don't want to do sugar for breakfast, right? You're like, oh my God, that's like one of my sources of protein. What the heck now? I totally get that. So, in my cookbook, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, you can guys get it on Amazon. There is all the breakfasts are actually really low they're egg free, and they're all very low in sugar. So there's a couple of recipes for smoothies that have no sugar whatsoever. So using different green vegetables, as well as we have what else? And then we have also just a lot of different savory breakfasts. The other thing is, what you can think of it, Mona, is to do dinner leftovers for breakfast. That's another, strategy. And give you an example. For instance, today, my breakfast was, I had a gluten-free toast, and I had it with some baba ganoush, which I made yesterday. And then I steamed some broccoli, and I had it with a piece of bacon on the side, right? And so that was like kind of my breakfast. And I didn't really cook it. I kind of put things together, whatever I have in the fridge that's savory. I do that first thing in the morning. Julie's asking what's wrong with eggs. Julie, I would say replay this because I talked about it extensively. So yes, Suzette is saying, yes, I eat eggs every morning, but still don't feel great. Yeah, so I will say don't eat them. Jamie is saying, I just got your book and I'm loving all the information. I'm so glad I found you, and I hope now to now be on a health journey to fix my hormones. Yeah, Jamie, that's awesome, and congratulations. Sharifa is saying, I'm getting nocturnal seizures before, during, and after period time. Could that be due to much estrogen in my body? So when you say seizures, what kind of seizures are you talking about? I would say I would defer you to a functional neurologist to talk about that. I don't feel comfortable discussing this. One thing you might want to consider for seizures, that's actually the original ketogenic diet started off for people with epileptic seizures. And so, I would suggest go that route, and also research some keto options. I really like keto. I really like the keto green path and book that Dr. Anna Kabeka is a big proponent of, because there's different ways of doing keto. And I will say, I was, out of curiosity, I joined a number of different keto groups just to see what the conversations are about, and I was horrified by the kind of foods that women were eating there, and the hormones were at a disaster zone, but all they wanted to do is just lose weight. So I don't think it's a sustainable way. Like, if your boobs are bursting from pain and you have like 20 days of periods, but just because you want to lose weight, and women like sitting there eating bacon and Kraft cheese all day long, I mean, that's just not right. So consider doing keto green. I think that's a really nice, clean way of doing keto. What kind of protein do you recommend for people who don't eat neither chicken, fish, or meat? Well, not many options left, are they, right? And so that is the problem, I think, with these kind of diets, is that you then resort to going with protein coming from legumes, right? And so, whether it's tempeh, fermented soy, even though during the elimination diet, I don't recommend to do soy. A lot of beans and legumes and lentils. Problem is that they are hard to digest for a lot of people. So, it's a real catch-22 with vegetarians or vegans trying to get protein from these sources. So that's a tough one. I would consider actually not being vegetarian if you want to rebalance your hormones. I'm sorry to say. I know some of you are not going to like hearing this, but I'm just being honest with you, because some of the unhealthiest clients that I used to have when I was in private practice were vegetarians and vegans. A lot of blood sugar problems, a lot of protein malabsorptions, a lot of IBS issues. Were not able to heal their gut because they were dependent on foods that were very processed or difficult to digest, such as legumes. I want to do Laurie's question here. Okay, sorry, Amy Sue. Let's do Amy Sue. Yeah. Is beef okay to eat for fibroids and estrogen dominance? Yeah. So Amy, I think in moderation, it's fine. The source of your beef is going to be very essential. So not buying it from regular beef sources, but buying it from grass-fed animals from a farmer you preferably know, or somebody from your farmer's market or community locally. And so that's a big difference, right, between that kind of beef versus a beef that comes from, from anywhere, and it's been raised in horrible conditions. And so that kind of animal will suffer too, and that gets passed on to us. So for fibroids, so that's it. Christy is saying, I'm in my perimenopause and the week before my period, I am extremely emotionally irrational. What can I do to calm this? Yeah, Christy, so the mood swings, and especially mood swings before your period, are very classical when it comes to estrogen dominance. And so guess what? I wrote a whole book about that called Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. And so I highly recommend for you to check it out, see whether it speaks to you. I'm in perimenopause as well, and mood swings were a big part of my journey. So that book is dedicated partly to women who suffer from these kind of conditions. I'm just going to read a couple of comments from Instagram. Thank you, Instagram, for being so engaged. I barely ever spend time here, but now I'm more encouraged to be here because you guys are a great lot too. Whitney is saying, I love your honesty around vegetarianism and veganism, which I'm trying to heal the gut and hormones. I see it in practice too. Yeah. And she's an RD. So yeah, so that's, we're just sharing with you what we see. I really want to just share with you, I am not dogmatic in my health approaches or any diet, like you hear me talk about, and referring you to different resources. I talk about doing keto preferably for some people, and trying to honor at least some of your preferences. Or the thing that I see is that, I'm just sharing with you what I see, right? And what other people have been experiencing. And there's a real big myth. It's actually kind of funny, but until a few years ago, whenever I will say I'm a nutritional coach and I run a health platform, and people not in this space, but say layman who are not in the health space will ask me, oh, you must be vegetarian. It's like, this is a definition of being healthy. Yet vegetarians and vegans are, some of the unhealthiest people I've found and really struggling with their health. So this is really not a definition of being healthy. Maria is actually saying on that point, she says, yeah, I was vegan and then raw vegan. Oh, wow. Clean food only. And then that's when my body fell apart. There you go. So thank you for sharing. Alyssa is saying, any tips on passing kidney stones? So first of all, you might want to consider looking at your overall health gut and see because oxalates are what's causing kidney stones. So why are you depositing kidney stones? But traditional Chinese medicine has got some really great solutions on kidney stones, and including lasers that can actually break down the stones. And so I would consider, calling around a few TCM, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners in your neighborhood, and see what you get, what help they can offer you. I want to do this one from Instagram. Any tips, if any, on how to shrink thyroid nodules? Yes, I do have some tips for you on that, because that's my story too. And guess what? Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, the book also has a whole chapter on thyroid nodules. And so I had thyroid nodules 2 and 1 on both sides of 2 on one and one on the other side of my thyroid. And guess what? Their growth is stimulated by estrogen dominance. And so that could be something for you to consider. There's a couple of topical things, like applying castor oil, frankincense on your thyroid could really be helpful. But I think that's just, again, it's a bit of a Band-Aid. It's a really nice tool to support, but not as a long-term solution. So if you address your estrogen dominance, and I'm wondering if you do have estrogen dominance symptoms too, apart from thyroid nodules, because typically when I see a woman having thyroid nodules, she also has a lot of other symptoms related to estrogen dominance, such as having very difficult periods, having PCOS, having long periods, having terrible PMSs, thyroid cancer, thyroid nodules, fibroids, endometriosis, long periods, absent periods, sporadic periods, hot flashes, night sweats, lumpy breasts, estrogenic cancers such as ovarian, thyroid, lung cancers in non-smokers, right? Breast cancer, those are some of the symptoms. I'm wondering if you have any of those going on as well. And by the way, my thyroid nodules are completely gone. In fact, I had once every 2 years, I do a sonogram on my thyroid. And so I had that done about a year ago, and the technician and I were chatting, and, you know, like once she knew what I was doing, we became kind of fast friends on that table there when I was lying down. And she said, you know, I'm not supposed to comment on the picture that I'm seeing, but I just want to tell you that for somebody with a history of Hashimoto's and having thyroid nodules in the past, this is the most beautiful thyroid tissue I've ever seen. And so it was a color one, and so you could see like vibrant pinkish color on the thyroid. And so, you know, I think I'm a living example of someone that you can shrink your thyroid nodules, not worry about losing your thyroid, right? That would be the worst thing, is that when they do a thyroidectomy and then you lose your thyroid and you're on mats for the rest of your life. And so that's not really good. Does your book go over how to heal your gut and hormones? Yes, absolutely. So thank you for that question. That's one of the estrogen reset protocol is actually has got, I call it a three-legged stool, right? So let me just do this. Three-legged stool, okay, three legs. Yeah, you can see 2, 3, okay. And the 3 legs is your gut health, second one is your liver health, and the third one is your blood sugar level. So think of it that way, like if you are sitting, you know, like those three-legged stools that you have, like those little one for kids and stuff, right? You know, and like 3 legs are in place, you can sit comfortably, right? No problem. But then if you remove just one leg, right, like the whole thing is just gonna topple over and you're gonna fall. So with hormones, I have found over the years, and that's why I created that protocol, the foundation is your gut health, your liver health, your blood sugar levels are absolutely essential. So thank you for asking that question. And the starting point for healing your gut is basically starting doing the elimination diet to lower inflammation, adding foods that are healing. Now, let me just super quickly explain why your gut health is so important when it comes to hormones, because you'd be like, what? Like my hormones, like my period, and she's talking about my gut. Like, what is it? Like, so disconnected, right? And that's, you know, because in Western medicine, it's like when you go and see your GI doctor, that's different from your OBGYN, is different from your neurologist, right? But the reality is everything is super connected. So the way this happens is that with gut health, for those of you who are curious, is there's many things, but one of the biggest things in my mind is that, you know, when your gut is messed up, right, is really struggling, and you are not absorbing the nutrients from food and supplements you are taking, period. And so the end result is that you're eating all this really amazing, organic, healthy food, but you're not absorbing all these nutrients. And guess what? Your endocrine system, your whole hormonal system, right, all the glands, like your thyroid, your ovaries, your pancreas, your pineal gland, your pituitary gland, you know, everything requires nutrients in order to function, right? They need the raw materials to function. So when you're depleted in nutrients like magnesium and zinc and vitamin C and whatnot, then, you know, you obviously are not going to be having the same, you're not producing hormones in the most effective way. The other thing about gut health is that there is a subset of bacteria in the gut that's called the estrobolome, and the estrobolome helps you to metabolize estrogen. So for those of you who are struggling with estrogen dominance, it's a really big issue to, you know, like women go like, why would I be fixing my gut to improve my, say, lumpy breast? But when you do, you actually start feeling like your breasts are actually feeling a lot better. You know, they did a study on women with breast cancer, and they have found that women with breast cancer have a significantly lower diversity of gut bacteria as compared to women who didn't have breast cancer. So that's really interesting. Lastly, I would also say, for those of you who are struggling with digestive health, you know, you're constantly inflamed. So digestive problems equals overall inflammation in the body, right? Which again is like a big break, puts a big break on your hormones to function. One other thing before I forget is, for those of you who are constipated, you know, I have never ever heard of a woman who's got good hormonal health while being constipated. And the reason is that we are all pooping our hormones out, okay? And your liver is the organ that's gonna separate those dirty estrogens, metabolize hormones out of the bloodstream. They've been used, they're useless, we need to poop them out. When you're constipated, you're recycling all these hormones back into your body, right? So just not a good thing at all. So those are some of the reasons why by fixing the gut health, you're gonna feel a lot better in your hormones as well. All right, let's see. Maria is asking, I feel so validated, understood by all this information and the way you lay it all out. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate your comments. Sandy's asking, how do I get off Synthroid? I had only left thyroid because I only have left thyroid because I had to remove one side because of Graves' disease. Sorry, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, this is Western. I'm sorry. I just cannot stop myself from making a commentary here on this. You know, this is Western medicine's way of dealing with an autoimmune disease, right? Graves' disease is an autoimmune disease. It causes hyperthyroidism, and I had that in my late 20s too. And they typically put you either on thyroid blockers, or they put you, or like in this case here, Sandy had a partial thyroidectomy, right? So had a right thyroid removed, and that's the way they deal with like you producing too much thyroid hormone, instead of addressing the root cause, right? And Graves' disease is an autoimmune disease. You address it through repairing the gut, supporting the liver, lowering the inflammation in the body, right? Those are some of the classical steps to take. So how do you get off Synthroid? Cindy, I'm not sure if you will be able to. And for any of those of you who are wondering about whether you would be able to get off Synthroid or any other thyroid, they call it thyroid medications. It's not really medications, thyroid, replacement therapy, right? Because you're actually taking a thyroid, either synthetic or natural, depending on which form you're taking. It all depends whether your thyroid can kick back in to produce its own hormones. And so, when you have left, only have half of your thyroid left, I'm not sure if you can get off it. However, the empowerment I want to offer you here is that just because you're on Synthroid, it's not a bad thing. I mean, if you're not feeling great, if you're showing a lot of symptoms of hypothyroidism, then working with a doctor who's willing to experiment with different medications. So whether adding a little bit of T3, or whether it's going on more natural way of having some natural thyroid medications, from granulars, could be an option for you to explore. But remember one thing, like, for example, if you stick to Synthroid for whatever reason, Synthroid is a synthetic T4, so which gets converted, guess what? In the gut and the liver. So remember how I talked about the gut just now? And so a lot of women who fix their gut and fix their liver, then they are really optimizing also the utilization of Synthroid itself. I've known a lot of women who, and including a lot of my friends who on Synthroid or Nature-Throid or whatever else, and feel fantastic for years and years and years only because they've optimized their gut and their liver, and so that Medicaid or that hormone replacement therapy is really working well for them, and they live complete, satisfying lives, and they feel amazing. So don't feel like you are, broken in any way just because you're taking Synthroid. If you're not feeling great, there's other things you can optimize, not getting off Synthroid. Sarah is asking, I have fibrocystic, Sarah is asking, I have fibrocystic breast, nodules on my thyroid, and polycystic ovaries, and it's difficult to control my weight too. So Sarah, I'm wondering, what have you done about it so far? I'm sorry if I'm sounding like a broken record, but I guess the reason why you guys are here is for a reason. And when I was writing my book, I was always taking notes on what are the symptoms you guys keep bringing up. And as long as they were connected indirectly or directly to estrogen dominance, I included them in the book. And so I have a whole chapter, Sarah, on fibrocystic breast in the book. Actually, I apologize. Give me like literally 10 seconds. Let me just go and grab the book because I keep talking about it and I left it on the other table. 1 second. Okay, so this is the copy of the book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. On Instagram is going to be showing upside down, so whatever, but you get the idea. And so, there is a chapter on fibrocystic breast, there's a chapter on nodules, there's a chapter on polycystic ovaries. PCOS is the last chapter. So take a look at that. But the foundation for all of them is really restoring your gut, liver, and blood sugar levels. The cool thing is, I just want to let you guys know, it might sound kind of complicated, right? When I talk about it, it's like, oh, well, now she wants me to do some things for my gut health, and then she's gonna be want me to do some things on my liver, and then how do I rebalance my blood sugar levels, right? Well, the good news is that we have designed all these recipes for you guys so that they actually have all of those 3 body systems covered for you, and then we have put them into actual proper meal plans, including shopping lists, and so you have these meal plans that are laid out for you day by day with a lot of like reusing foods from the day before and stuff like that. So you don't have to cook every day. And, and when you follow the meal plan, it's an anti-inflammatory diet, right? Based on the elimination diet. So the whole cookbook is free of gluten, dairy, eggs, soy, corn. It's very low in sugar. And so all of those things are already covered in there. And so when you're eating this way, then you are automatically supporting your gut, balancing your sugar, and supporting your liver at the same time. So you don't have to think about it as 3 separate things. You're doing that through all the meal plans together. Many Blessings is asking, what can I do to decrease inflammation in the body? That's a great question, because inflammation, I have found that, it's really Dr. Mark Hyman always talks about it, that it's like the leading cause of all chronic disease in Western world. And I completely agree with that. And so inflammation can be so multifactorial, right? And so probably that's why it's so prevalent. So food, I say, is one of the big causes. So, that's why getting on the elimination diet, reducing the inflammatory foods like gluten, dairy, soy, eggs temporarily, right? Sugar. Oh my God, you guys, sugar, hugely inflammatory. Coffee, highly inflammatory. If you're living off coffee, more than 2 cups a day, bad news. What else? Stress, lack of sleep, medications, exposure to mold, trauma from the past can be constantly inflammatory on the body. I would say those are some of the real top ones. If you can just nail down a few of those, oh my goodness, like you are, you're going to be in a pretty good shape. For those of you asking about the book in the UK, you will have to go to overcomingestrogendominance.com. So the title of the book.com, and we ship it from there to the UK. So just heads up, the cost of shipping is expensive, but we are not marking it as up. We're just passing it on whatever we got from FedEx. And so, it can be expensive, but look at it this way. There is no other books probably in your country about this topic. So, I guarantee you, and I promise you, it's going to be well worth it. If you want to wait for the Kindle, we are planning to release the Kindle sometime end of June, beginning of July. So that could be an option for you too. Let's see. What else do we have? All right. I appreciate that everyone is different, but the average time spent to heal the gut, liver, and blood sugar levels. And it really depends. It's an unfair question, because some people just feel better, like within a month they have like this major transformation, right? But let's just say that someone has got some real gut issues, like some serious infection going on, some parasites that just undermines everything, right? It could be, it could take months, sometimes a couple of years to repair. So it's just not fair to answer that question. And it's not just about being different. It's just everybody has different conditions that are present, right? So I would say liver starts responding really quickly. Like within a month, people start feeling way better. Blood sugar balance. Dr. Mike Hyman has written a book on reversing diabetes. And he says that within 2 weeks, people can go from being diabetic to being completely non-diabetic. So I would say those 2 are really pretty quick. Gut health is the one that can be complicated depending on the condition of the person. I'm going to jump into Instagram for just a second. I get chronic migraines all the time. It starts at the neck. Do you believe this could be food related or an imbalance? So it really depends. So here's a couple of things to consider. Migraines, there's, really figuring out what is the root cause is essential. You know that if it's due to hormonal imbalances, if you have your cycle, then you can start seeing like, am I having those migraines around my ovulation perhaps and just before my period? Okay, well that could be due to estrogen dominance. You can correct your hormones, migraines are gonna go away. But migraines can also be due to food sensitivities, such as, for example, I used to have horrendous migraines, and my migraines were coming from dairy and from gluten. Those were my biggest two triggers. Okay, but it also could be something that's not my expertise area. Migraines, from, for example, after a car accident, something that there was a certain blockage of points at the back. There's certain damage that was done that causes migraine. So, I would say starting off with noticing whether it's your cycle, then looking into the elimination diet, also replenishing magnesium levels. So magnesium deficiency, one of the signs of magnesium deficiency, you guys, is migraines and headaches, right? So that's another thing to consider. Let's see. Do we have any good questions on Facebook? We got Daphne asking, just received your book on estrogen dominance. Is it possible histamine intolerance triggered by menopause is it helped by taking magnesium diglycerate? Hold on. Just received your book. Is it possible histamine intolerance triggered by menopause helped with taking? So I'm not sure what is the question. Is that the calcium diglycerate helps with histamine intolerance? If that's the question, the answer is no. Calcium diglycerate is going to help you to detox your liver, and including detoxing you from estrogen. Lowering estrogen might help histamine in some ways, but I find it's more the other way around. When the histamine is high, then estrogen gets jacked up. So working on your histamine intolerance probably would be really, really wise. And there's a couple of resources I want to advise you on. Like if you're struggling with histamine, in case you're not familiar with histamine, high histamine, actually, this is a really interesting topic because I'm finding like more and more people are really now really suffering from it without realizing and knowing that that's the potential cause of their problem. So, histamine, actually headaches and migraines could be also due to high histamine. So let me just run quickly through the list of symptoms. So things like for example, you have a glass of wine, which is very high, alcohol is very high in histamine, and you suddenly start feeling really hot. You start having rashes on your body, like redness, and hives, rashes, headaches, migraines, anxiety. So those are some of the classical ones. Then there's a very long list of many other ones that could be related to a lot of other things. But if you can start making the connection between, I just had a glass of wine. Stuffy nose and having like a lot of sinus problems, itchy ears, right? Those are all histamine things. So histamine a lot of times jacks up estrogen dominance, makes it worse. Two great resources to consider for histamine intolerance and lowering your histamine without being excessive in the long term, meaning that you only embark on a low histamine diet for a period of time. And after that, the whole idea is to rebalance your body. So you go back to eating a complete, really nice diet that includes high histamine foods. Because, look, sauerkraut is high in histamine, right? And so is avocado and, and kimchi and all these really wonderful rich gut bacterial foods that are really beneficial for the gut. But if you have if you have histamine intolerance, then you can't eat those foods temporarily, right? But the idea is to heal and then get better. So two great resources is Mast Cell 360 by Beth O'Hara, and the other one is healinghistamine.com. Although the owner, my very dear friend Yasmina, passed away, so that's not a website that's maintained too well right now, but it's there. Great resources. Let's see. I'll do one or two questions more, and then we're gonna wrap up. So Louisa is saying, I'm in menopause, and one of the biggest frustrations is lower belly fat, belly push. I do CrossFit 5 to 6 times a day. A day? You mean a week? And eat pretty well. and the belly is not budging. Will supplementing with bioprogesterone help with this? I am not currently of any supplementation. Any other tips? Yeah. So Louisa, first of all, I hope you're not doing it 5-6 times a day because you're over exercising. And one of the reasons why, there's a couple of reasons why we have belly fat. One is high cortisol levels. So you might have come across women, and maybe some of you are here when you can relate when I say that you have experienced this phenomenon with the more you exercise, the more weight you put on. Has anyone experienced that here? And when that happens, it's typically because your cortisol levels are on all-time high. Cortisol is a steroid. So think of it this way, like people who are put on steroids, right? They can't lose weight. Like they could be eating like 300 calories a day and they still put on weight, and it's all like they just get really big and puffy. So cortisol plays a big role here in helping you mitigate inflammation. So when you lower cortisol from stress, then basically your like the steroid you're injecting yourself with, it gets lowered as well. One example I want to give you is, one of the most frustrating clients I used to work with was in New York City. I think New York is amazing in so many ways, and it also attracts very type A personality people, right? So everybody is on a run. So we're super busy, is extremely ambitious, hustles a lot, is a natural hustler or has to be a hustler to survive in that city. Everybody has 2 jobs to pay for rent. Things are expensive, right? I'm even talking about before COVID. So one of the most frustrating things that I experienced when I was in private practice is that women could not lose weight. And I told them to, and then when we look at like their day, when they share with me what their day looks like, it's crazy. It was crazy. It was like, it was getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, running to the subway, working until 8 p.m. and then going off with friends, and maybe sometimes working until 7 p.m., then going for dance classes, and then working out 5 times a week, and in between, and then having lunch at the table, and going to bed, and never sleeping more than 6 hours. And it was really hard for me, and they couldn't lose weight, right? So I'll be like, hey, can we reorganize your day in a way that you actually do get enough sleep? You can wake up without an alarm clock. By the way, who here knows why you should wake up without an alarm clock? And then just be more relaxed and have like half an hour at least for yourself for lunch, and learning to breathe and not being like in this constant run state. And and it was impossible to talk them into this, and yet they couldn't lose weight. And so, but my nobody wanted to actually, most of them did not want to take this advice because they were so amped up. So one of the big things with belly fat included is, and just overall body also, not an ability to lose weight, is high cortisol levels. The other thing is, when it comes to belly fat, it's really interesting where you store the fat in the body. It could be a reflection of which hormonal imbalance you have. So, for example, women who have high estrogen levels are the typical pear shape. So for example, when I put on weight, it all goes in my butt and hips and thighs. Okay. So I'm like your typical classical pear shape. But women who are storing a lot of fat around they're on the belly, right? Is typically that happens as a metabolic issue. And so that is more to do with blood sugar balance as well as inflammation and high testosterone. So Louisa, one thing I will say is to be super mindful of how much sugar you consume. Reorganize your breakfast, switch to savory breakfasts. In the book, I talk about PFF kind of breakfast, protein, fat, and fiber kind of breakfasts. And that way you will see that your blood sugar levels might actually get improved much, much quicker, and that your belly fat might actually start budging. All right, let me just do one other question. I'll do that from Instagram for a change. Let me see what we have. Actually, I think I've answered most of the Instagram ones. Do we have one more good one, Brittany? And then let's wrap up for today. Do we have anything, Brittany? Okay. Kristen is asking, I have very low progesterone. My naturopath put me on 150 milligrams of bioprogesterone, but it makes my hair fall out much worse than before. I do have Hashis, but my hair loss was consistent until I started the progesterone. Any insights? So I would say, I have never seen, Kristen, the reaction to progesterone being hair loss per se. So if you feel like so there's a couple of things. When you say 150 ml, so bioprogesterone, like, is this topical progesterone or is this oral progesterone? That's one consideration. The other thing is that, if you have Hashimoto's, then I would really focus on trying to address the Hashimoto's and see how are your antibodies, how symptomatic are you apart from hair loss? Like, what about body temperature? Like, do you have cold hands all the time? Do you feel tired a lot of the time? Depression, also losing hair on your eyebrows, potentially eyelashes, feeling a lot of fatigue, depression, anxiety, weight gain, horrendous fatigue, or some of the other symptoms of thyroid. So if you're experiencing all of them in combination with a hair loss, then I would say addressing your Hashimoto's and thyroid might be good to revisit with your doctor. Otherwise, the other thing with progesterone, like, if you really identify that progesterone was your issue, and remember, I always talk about it that, one person's food or medicine is another person's poison. And so not everybody has the same reaction to everything. Then, the other thing to consider is work with your provider with Vitax, VITAX, or chasteberry. It's the same thing. And it's a wonderful herb that natively helps you to boost your progesterone levels. In fact, in Germany, the first go-to method of increasing your progesterone levels is actually using Vitex, and even traditional doctors, like most conservative, I would say, doctors in Germany, and it's covered by insurance on top of that, actually use Vitex. And so that's something to consider. All right, well, I'm gonna be wrapping up, you guys, and this is gonna be the start of my weekend because I try not to work on Fridays. I do a lot of reading and studying and research. So just want to give you a heads up, I'm working on an article that's called Fixing Sleep After 45. So I want to have some time tomorrow on doing more research. I'm partly using my Aura Ring that is right here. By the way, who is here using Aura Ring? Is really giving me some real deep insights into my sleep and what affects it. And I'm going to be creating like a checklist for you so you can, for those of you who are having sleeping problems, ever since you've hit 45 or perimenopause, like your sleep is just not the same, then I'm writing this article for you and for myself as a sort of a summary of my own experimentation. I'm also doing a lot of reading from a book by Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep. He's a sleep PhD, pretty much 30 years of his life dedicated to sleep. And so I'm planning to, create a checklist so that every woman for those of you who say I've tried it all and I still can't sleep, I'm hoping that this article is going to help you to reveal that there's actually a lot of other things that you could potentially do that you probably haven't thought about yet to help you sleep. Because, the thing is that when you don't sleep, it's just the whole, just your health collapses, your cravings go up, you just, you feel like shit. You are moody, you crave all sorts of crap and rubbish and sugar and muffins and coffee and all of that stuff, right? And the part also that was extremely scary reading from his book is that now they are finding that people with Alzheimer's, for example, are also those who are chronically sleep deprived. And that's part of the reason why they are not flushing out the toxins from the brain in their deep sleep, and it creates an accumulation of that. So anyway, so that article is coming out sometime in May. I'm planning to finish, so that's why Fridays are my kind of off days, my research writing days, and so that my team have to manage without me. All right, everybody, lovely to have you here, guys. I'm gonna be doing more Instagram because you guys are an awesome group there, and I love to connect with you more. Thank you, everybody, on Facebook as well and on YouTube being here today, posting your amazing questions. I'm sorry if I haven't come to your question today. I will try to do that on the next live that I'm doing. All right, thanks everyone, and bye for now.